so thankful to have Brother Bernard with us today, and it's just a great honor to be able to talk a little bit about manhood and fatherhood. I wanted to start today, Brother Bernard. We know that there are clear statistics between present men and the success of families and churches. Could we open up a little bit and talk to us about how you've seen men have affected success in churches, district, and the organization?
As you mentioned, if you look at the statistics in society, the outcomes of children are greatly affected by men particularly. And obviously, we all know the important role of a mother, but sometimes we think, well, a father's just an add-on. But if you look at statistics from education to poverty to juvenile delinquency, alcohol and drug addiction, you name it, homelessness, all of these things are highly correlated with the absence of fathers, biological fathers in the home. And I'll hasten to add, of course, the grace of God and the ministry of the church can overcome negative influences. So we're not having a gloom and doom message for someone who was raised in adverse circumstances. But let's be honest, the absolutely best outcome is for children, for young people, is to have their father in the home.
Right.
And I saw that very clearly in our church in Austin. And I'm thankful we were able to build a strong church with about 50% of the adults were men.
Great.
I do see a lot of times that a lot more women come into the church, and often that happens at first. But you have to really be intentional to reach men. And the good news is you can do that.
Yeah, and I think that what you're describing is that is an environment that attracts other men, that they see strength in the leadership and then men in the church, and then more men want to come.
Yes, absolutely. And getting men involved, even for example, in Sunday school, you usually think of women as Sunday school teachers, and probably the majority are. But we were able to get a lot of men involved in children's ministry and teaching Sunday school. And so role models at every age. And as you say, strong men attract strong men into the church. And men who are involved in various things attract other men who are involved and who want to be involved. And men doing manly type things make it look like, oh, this is the kind of church I would like to be part of.
Right. And all the churches that you planted, that the New Life network there has now planted 29 churches. That's only possible because of strong men being there and seeing that growth. We know that you had a great dad, and it was a great missionary, and of course raised great children. Tell us a little bit about your dad and some things that maybe we wouldn't know about your dad.
Well, my dad was definitely a family man. He was a minister of the gospel, a pioneer missionary, and so his life was consumed in ministry. However, unlike many men of his generation, he took time with family. So typically, unless he was on a ministry trip, every night we had dinner together as a family. We spent time talking. As I grew up as a teenager, he loved to talk about church. We would sit and just talk about his strategy. What was his plan for reaching a new city? What was his plan for expanding the church? And I was very interested in that. He also loved the news. And so he and I would talk about, at that time, it was hard for us to get news from America, but we always had Time magazine at that time, and we would discuss politics. So we had common points of interest. Another thing that impressed me, we always took an annual family vacation to an interesting place. We went hiking or whatever we did. It was outdoors a lot of times, but it was always something interesting. And when we were in the U.S. traveling, deputational travel, if we were anywhere near a historic site or a national park, or crossing the border to Mexico, we would always take time, maybe get up early in the morning and take a special trip. Wow. It might be just 1 day or 2 days. But he was very intentional about weaving in family events in a busy life of ministry.
What were some of the ministry services that they were involved in that you saw your dad as a young man growing up in Korea? What did you see your dad do when you were in Korea?
Well, he was a hard worker, and he was a preacher. He was a very pastoral type preacher, very practical preacher. But his schedule on Sunday morning, early morning prayer meeting, adult Sunday school, adult worship, Sunday afternoon English service for American soldiers, and Sunday night service. So,
wow.
That's 5 services on Sunday. So he was a hard worker.
Yeah, that's more preaching than some preachers do in a whole month these days. That's amazing. Well, and then he was in Korea how many years?
20 plus years.
Wow. And then so in raising you, so he raises you, and then you were so confident and independent that you moved by yourself 7,000 miles back. Tell me a little bit about that transition, what that was like.
Well, I graduated from high school at 17, and I was in Korea, so I wanted to go to college. So, yes, I had to move 7,000 miles away and start college at age 17. My dad did say, my dad and my mother, they did not want me to live on campus in a secular university dorm. So they found a family in the church where I could rent a room. And in my first year, I was in Houston, Texas, going to Rice University. So I had to commute by city bus, which had to change buses downtown. It was like a 45-minute commute. But my second year, they bought me a used car. So I was able to provide my own transportation. But they were very intentional. My dad never tried to say, you have to be a preacher, you have to do this. His main emphasis, I want you to serve God. I want you to be a success in life. I want you to be a strong, active member of the church. But whatever career you feel, I'm going to support you. And so they were very supportive of my going to college and checking on me. So even though I was at a distance, and I'll give you a key thing. When I was graduating from college, my dad, of course, they came to my graduation, but I was in the process of trying to make some decisions of where to go after there. And I was potentially going to make a wrong decision. And my dad talked to me and he said, I had a dream. And he said, I saw you falling off a cliff and I had to save you. Wow. And so he said, I want to give you some advice. And I feel like God told me to give you this advice. And the advice was life-changing. Wow. So even though I was on my own for 4 years, at a crucial time, he came in and said, I really feel this is what God has for you, and this is not what God has for you. And I listened, and I followed his advice, and it did change the trajectory of my life. And then I'll also add, one of my sons was at a crucial time in his life, and he was potentially about to make the wrong decision. And my dad wrote him a letter and saying, in prayer, I just felt led to give this advice to you, and here it is. Wow. And it was the right advice. And so, to me, even though he wasn't a daily presence in our adult lives or a daily presence in my kids' lives, it was only occasional, yet at a crucial time, he was able to speak with great wisdom and really affect our trajectory. So there's the value of a strong father and a strong grandfather.
And you see what you just described, that your father had such an impact on you that you could move all the way back to America. You live in Houston, a large city. You live for God. You're called to the ministry, and he put enough in you that you were able to make it and be independent. So let's talk now about your sons. And so, of course, that transition happens from the first Brother Bernard to the second Brother Bernard. Well, let's talk about the next Brother Bernards. I know that you have all three of your children pastor churches. Tell us a little bit about what they're up to.
Yes, I have 2 sons and a daughter. My oldest son, Jonathan, and his wife are both credentialed ministers. They're pastoring a relatively small and new church in Georgetown, Texas, which is a suburb of Austin. He's just gone full-time. He's launched a business. He's in the high-tech field, and so he's launched a high-tech business to support himself, but also be pastor.
And he's on the men's committee?
Yes, he is the men's secretary for the South Central Texas District, and he's very passionate about that. And then my second son, Daniel, and his wife, Kaylee, they are pastoring in Sterling Heights, Michigan. They took a very wonderful church a couple of years ago, and it's growing. He's also the North American Missions Promotions Director on a half-time basis, so he's in and out of headquarters. It's not something I chose for him, but he carved out an area of expertise in which I have no expertise through his drums and video and all kinds of stuff. And so he's really done a great job as promotions director. I will say this, I have a podcast that's fairly well known. And so a while back, our director of communications came and gave me the glowing report, 1 million views, this and that and that and that and that. And he said, so in conclusion, you're the second most popular member of your family on social media. Because while I have, I think, 60,000 subscribers, Daniel has 200,000 subscribers to his video channel. And then my daughter, Lindsay, she's a credentialed minister. Her husband, Cullen is a professor at Urshan University. She's an adjunct professor. And together they're starting a church in Wentzville, Missouri. They're in a rented building, and they're about, I think, 3 years in. So I'm very thankful. I didn't expect that necessarily any of my kids would be preachers. I never tried to push them in that mold. I did what my parents did. I said, I want you to live for God, be faithful, good members of church, good members of society, soul winners, tithe payers, but I will support you whatever you feel your career would be. But as it turned out, I guess they saw the positive side of ministry. They all became preachers, for which I'm thankful. And I tried to have that same relationship with my kids. I kind of half jokingly said, look, I left the home when I was 17, so I'm going to give you till 18. When you're 18, you're on your own, support your own life. And of course, my wife says, no, baby, you can stay as long as you want. And I said, well, look, if you're going to college, I'll keep supporting you. But I was kind of saying jokingly, you know what? You need to be a man. Of course, the girl's a little different.
Right,
you can stay as long as you want. In fact, you don't even ever need to get married. But with my sons, I was kind of saying, I'm expecting you to be an adult when you're 18. I'm still there for you, but there's a transition. And I will say this, I always want to have influence in my kids' lives. I always want to be able to give them advice and for them to come to me at crucial times. And they do, but they don't always take my advice. And that's fine because, I don't want to pay their house note. I don't want to pay their car note. I want them to be responsible for that, which means they can make the decision that they think is best.
Sure. Well, what you're describing is that passed down from your parents to you and you to your kids, that you exampled a strong father. You saw your father be a man of faith, a man of hard work and work ethic. He invested in you. He showed you that the kingdom was first, and then he released you to go. Then you exampled that. I so appreciate, I want to say on behalf of the men of the UPCI, we appreciate your integrity, you being present for your family. We love to see that you've always, of course, been allowed us to be a priority in your life, but we see that you have a strong family. And maybe the greatest gift in some ways that you give to the men of the UPCI is you've showed us how to be a great son, how to be a great father, and how to be a great husband. So we thank you for everything you're doing. We're behind you 100%.
Well, thank you for all you're doing with men's ministry. I think it's a vital part of the church and of the United Pentecostal Church International.
Amen. God bless you.